Well, we start tonight with a developing story we brought to you last night. The Scottish Government's directive that all schools must provide separate toilets for boys and girls. New guidance issued by Holyrood ministers states that they must be made available on the basis of biological sex, but that schools can also provide gender-neutral toilets. However, the move, which follows the Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman under equalities law, is not without its critics. Scotland's largest teaching union claims it passes the buck to schools and councils, leaving them with the difficult decisions. Well, earlier, EIS General Secretary Andrea Bradley outlined the complexity.
Well, it certainly gives us clarity on the Scottish Government's position, though it has to be said it's not a surprise that the Scottish Government has taken the position that it has, because it would have been very difficult for it to have taken a position that was oppositional to the ruling of the Supreme Court. And it had already said some weeks, if not months back, that it accepted the outcome of the Supreme Court deliberations.
Andrew, I'm keen to get your thoughts on what the Education Secretary's been saying. We've got a clip from Jennigal Ruth on this programme last night. Have a listen.
To be clear, to give one example then, would it be acceptable for a trans girl to use a girl's toilet?
So it's very difficult for me as Education Secretary to comment on specific examples, Graham. You'll understand that because I don't know the nature of the case, the nature of the individual involved.
But it's a general principle though, isn't it?
I hear the point that you're making, but that would be a matter for the individual education authority to engage with parents and carers, to engage with the head teacher, but also to engage with their wider school community. You know, we don't foist decisions on schools in Scotland. We work with our education authorities, with our head teachers.
Andrea, how workable is this, do you think?
It's going to be extremely difficult for trans young people to feel safe, secure and supported in school, with arrangements changing from how they've been in Scotland over the past number of years. So that, that's our first concern. And it's actually going to be pretty difficult for schools and for teachers in supporting young people to navigate what is really now quite difficult and complex territory. In terms of the question put to the Cabinet Secretary, it seems to me that the implication in the guidance is that the principle should be observed that young people use the bathrooms that are in accordance with their sex assigned at birth. Albeit that the guidance also talks about other considerations, well-being considerations, safety considerations, considerations around young people's rights.
Andrea, have you heard anything from teachers at schools at this stage about how they feel about the guidance?
We haven't had anything yet from members since the publication of the guidance yesterday, but after the issue of the Supreme Court judgment, we very much did. A quite significant number of our members were expressing real concern about that. And not only our members, but parents of transgender young people coming directly to the EIS with concerns about the well-being impacts of the kind of like change in climate around trans inclusion. And this is of course against the backdrop of really hostile, transphobic and homophobic behaviours out in society.
Just finally, Andrea, and briefly if you don't mind, what impact, if any, do you think this will have on resources, which we know of course are stretched at the moment?
This has come, sort of 6 weeks into the school session when workload for teachers we know is already a significant issue. So this coming at this stage in the year is a bit problematic in terms of staffing resource and the ability of staff to respond in careful, considered, sensitive ways to this, because this is how it has to be handled. But also, I think longer term, it has implications for how we think about toilet provision in our schools generally.
Andrea Bradley, General Secretary of the EIS Union, thank you so much.